And here we are, Shu. Finally,
We are live.
we are live.
Right.
Finally, I can interview you about video games because no one knows that you are my go-to guy when I
Right.
have any kind of video game dubbed. I
Yeah.
immediately say, Shu, what do you think about
Yeah.
this?
I
And
just hear
then
it in the background, isn't it?
yeah. And then whatever you say, I will basically say it in Italian, and people say, "Oh my gosh, this guy's
Right.
smart about video games." I say, "Yeah, like I
Right.
know everything." But you are my source, my primary source. Since how long are you in the video game industry now? For how long?
Oh,
How many years?
depends on how you count. Like I joined a video game magazine in about 2001, and
All right.
I properly joined the video game industry, making video games from 2004. So making video games for about 16, 17 years, and 2, 3 years before that in media and magazines.
Gosh,
Yeah.
how is changed this crazy video game industry? Because I mean, if I think 20 years ago, it was a completely different universe, and
Yeah.
now it's such a gigantic world.
Yeah, I think there are many things that are changing, right? And you see, the games are more and more beautiful, higher and higher fidelity that in the games, and it's more and more expensive to make. But at the same time, what makes games fun to play pretty much remain the same. So all the craft and experience that you're building up is very applicable today. But as an industry, I think more and more people are playing video games, and you can play video games almost everywhere on all the platforms, on all the screens, so it becomes
Yeah.
more accessible. But there's certain things that remain true with the craft of how to make video games.
Do you think that still the industry uses some traditional framework or way of doing it, apart from technology that is completely changed? Some guidelines, some ways of organizing the video game
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
remain the same?
Yeah, I think
Give me an example.
from design that we always talk about risk and rewards. The game is all about choices, like as when you play chess, what is your next move? Doing one thing is different from doing another. That's why it is so interesting. And still today, whether you are playing, Fortnite, Apex Legends, FIFA, or League of Legends, it's all about, as a player, what can you do next? What choices that are in front of you? So the philosophy, the craft of designing interesting choices stays true. But at the same time, technology moves so fast, and you are creating enormous cities, and you require hundreds, if not thousands, of people making video games today. So it's the change, as well as the constant, is what makes this industry interesting to be part in.
Sure, we haven't even started to talk, and immediately a question from Dario Doctor DR.
Yeah.
Question for Shu. What do you think of the mobile gaming industry and how it is evolving? That's incredible if you think. I mean,
Yeah.
the mobile gaming was not existent before
Yeah.
2007 when the iPhone came out, and
Yeah.
now is huge. What's the situation about the mobile game at the moment?
I think, like, a few years ago, that the most profitable and successful mobile games has very kind of low graphic fidelity, or has very broad appeal, just trying to capture as a large audience as possible, and they rely on very simple interactions and proven kind of monetization tactics to be successful, because this is what mobile is good at. It is immediate, and it is fast. And but these days that we see, because of the capability of the technology, there's better and better graphics on the mobile, and people change their user habits as well, and happy to invest more and more time on mobile as well. The line between console gaming and mobile gaming is start to blur, and we see more and more simultaneous launch, things that appear on PC, and straight away they will appear on mobile as well. And the other thing that is interesting is, people in the past are very reluctant to pay, and free to play is very dominant. It still is. It's a very kind of a successful sector, but because I think more and more mobile users are educated in a way to appreciate the innate value of the products, and there are more and more premium games as well, and people are happy to pay subscriptions. So I think what you will see is one, the traditionally successful titles will um, remain for a period, but at the same time there will be more and more um, diverse content and publishing strategies appear on the mobile platform.
But it's still possible to. I like how we started. I thought about starting with completely different topic, but I'm
Yeah,
following now the questions and
yeah,
immediately. And I also have immediately another one here. Indie
yeah,
games. What do you think about the cloud gaming? Is it the future? But before we go into cloud gaming, I like this random
yeah,
order.
yeah.
Is it still possible in the mobile world coming out with a game like? Flappy Bird, or that kind of game that just go viral, and you are one man band, you develop your game, you get your big money coming in,
Yeah.
and that's it? Or it's just impossible, the level now is too high?
I think it is possible, but I think it will be very, very hard. It will be a combination of good, solid gameplay as well as the right moment that it becomes a talking point. I think people appreciate quality content, but it is still the old discovery problem, that you know uh, big players can afford to spend very big money on marketing. And I'm sure if you go to App Store, Android Play Store these days, you are spoiled by choices that you have. And like when I browse Netflix, that the time takes me to decide on which film to watch is probably longer than the time I
Yeah,
spent watching the film. It's because the enormous kind of selection that in front of you. So even if you make a very, very good game, it is very difficult to be noticed. So it is still possible, and but I think the element of luck plays a much bigger part than before.
got it. And about this cloud gaming, what is this cloud gaming, like Stadia, Google Stadia, this kind of
Yeah,
idea?
I wouldn't say it is the future, but it certainly is a big part of the future. And what it enables us to do is that we don't have to carry the processing power with us, because the cloud process the computation for us. And that's why Stadia is powerful. That I can have a very low end mobile. As long as my network is stable, I can access very high quality content, and that means my investment into the hardware is very little. That enables a much larger audience to participate and access premium content, which before they might not be interested in. And if you follow the kind of the big tech companies, you will see Amazon and Microsoft are doing incredibly well, because they occupy a very strong presence with their cloud technology offerings, not just to games, but all
Right.
the other entertainment firms as well.
Got it. I have so many questions. I'll get a couple more, and then I
Yeah,
will try to talk about the
yeah,
topic of the gaming industry in post-COVID era
yeah.
and blah blah blah. One is this one. Giovanni asks if games on iPhone is connected with this. Will replace PlayStation or other game company in the future? How is this console world versus mobile world, cloud world? What's going on?
No,
Try
I
to give
don't.
us
I think they will coexist, right? And I think
okay.
because the consumption habits are different, and they are not mutually exclusive. That you can play on iPhone and you can play on your Nintendo Switch, PlayStation. There is no law saying that you must choose one, and many people do this, do both. And when you are on the go, commuting, that you might be on your phone or take your Nintendo Switch, but when you're at home, you want to enjoy the big graphics, superior sound in your house, that you sit on the sofa, and there will also be the party occasions that you play with others. So I think they will coexist, and I don't think that one will kind of dominate the industry while the other are being driven out. So I think mobile and console gaming will coexist for a very long term to come, a long time to come.
Right. And Antonio, okay, final question, and then we start. I think we'll stay here 3 hours first to
Yeah,
answering all the questions. Is about how you develop a video game. So, by the way, I'm always very cross with you, Shu, because whenever we talk about video game, you're always under NDA. So you
yeah,
usually say, "No, I can't speak about
yeah,
that." Yeah, but what are you working on? No, I
yeah.
can't say.
I
But
need to
is
be
it?
very, very careful
Oh
about that.
my gosh!
And I said that
You,
let's not do live, just in case I reveal something.
You're so secretive, which is
Yeah,
incredible. But I understand. I mean, of course, it
yeah.
are important projects, and you can't spoiler and leak the project. But Antonio's got the question about the community. So when you develop a video game, how the community feedback influenced the roadmap?
Oh,
Can you guide us through the process that you do when a company is developing a video
yeah.
game? What happened?
So I think it really depends. I think it plays a huge part in it, but there are several kind of components in it. And when people talking about community feedback, they're talking about going onto game forums. I have a problem, and I want to make the developers know. Yes, large developers will be monitoring those feedbacks from the forums. However, that we must remember that sometimes the loudest voice is not representative of the common kind of experience with the game. So you have to take opinions from the game forums with a pinch of salt. But at the same time, there are two main things the developers will do. One is from data analytics. So games usually come with a lot of data collection. Of course, this is all um, uh, respect people's privacy, and lots of the data are collected anonymously, just trying to analyze the trend rather than pinpoint any specific user. But from that data that we can see, certain areas of games are too hard, and certain areas of the game, there's problems that people get stuck. So from those data that you can build a very true picture after the game is released to know what the problem is. And with the technology today, that we can update the game to fix those problems and trying to optimize the experience for people. Another component of this is focus testing. And that is actually not different from other industry. That if you make a cake, or if you make a new TV or new vacuum cleaner, that you will find a group of selective audience that is the group that you are targeting, and trying to get very focused feedback from that. And that is before the game is released. So um, that is developers proactively go out and get useful feedback when they are creating the product, as well as monitoring when the product is released from the data analytics to shape what the update and the future of the game
Awesome.
will be.
Got it. Got it. I can't stop clicking through the questions. Francesco is curious about video game trailers. By the way, video game trailers can be incredible
Yeah,
nowadays. I can show maybe some. Do you want me to show
yeah,
something?
yeah. Go on then.
Maybe.
Yeah, I
Let me
think
check.
yeah, there's a very old trailer, but very important one of Final Fantasy
Okay.
VII that maybe we can play.
Right.
We can
Okay.
talk through that as we play that.
Wait. I'll try to collect it. Tell me, how does it work? No, but first, tell me today how video games are developed, because my idea at the beginning was, all right, there's a big company developing the video game, and that's it. They employ, I don't know, 1,000 people, 10,000 people. They put them in an office, and then they develop the game.
Yeah,
That's it. But today the market is very different,
yeah.
and a lot of interesting possibilities.
Yeah.
So, what's the situation?
I think that is still largely true. That it's a very collaborative effort, that people do work in the offices and collaborate with other people. That you have designers, artists, and engineers, and testers, animators, VFX artists, lighting artists. You have all sorts of specialists that are working together, and most of the time in an office, so that they can talk to each other very easily. But
Yeah.
because of the scale of the games, that it is very difficult to find, say, everybody that you require and put them in the same location. So there's more and more distributed development. That means you might separate a part of your game and have someone else working on it. This could be, the trailer. This could be testing. This could be localization, translating the games into all the European languages, and or you might even have specialists doing VFX. So you will, for a successful large release, that you probably will have a dozen or maybe more different studios working all over the world, connected together, and all participating in a specific part of the game. So lots of people working in the same office, yes, but at the same time, there will be many offices in the world all working together on the same product.
Do we have in Italy any specific skill that in the video game industry? Because I know we have some great people working in the video game industry, but I don't know if Italy maybe has got some specific skill. I don't know. We good with, I don't know.
Yeah, so one of the games I really enjoyed a couple of years ago is called Mario Rabbids, and that is on a Nintendo Switch. That was developed by the Ubisoft Italy, and I believe the studio was in Milan. And
Right.
it's a very impactful title, because for a third-party studio as Ubisoft, working with first-party, particularly Nintendo IP, not everybody makes a Mario game outside of Nintendo, I would say. So I think that says the strength of the studio in Italy.
I see. In the meantime, I found the trailer. Tell me if it's this one.
Yes, it
Final
is.
Fantasy 8 E3 7.
Yeah.
I can't see anymore. E3. All right. So
so as you can see,
E3
this
event.
is 5 years ago. 5 years ago
Right.
that we're talking about. The game was just released, I think, a month ago. And so when we say when the trailer of the video game is released, at what point actually the game, the game can be developed at any point. It depends on what the marketing strategy is. So Final Fantasy is a game. Final Fantasy 7 is a game that is, I believe, 23 years old. The very original game was released in 1997. It's a hugely popular game that was released on PlayStation, and we're talking about PlayStation 4, even PlayStation 5. So that's 3 generations ago. But because there's such a huge popularity after the game is released, people have been crying for a remake of the game. And for many years, it never happened. We still have Final Fantasy VII. Why do we make a new one? But suddenly in 2015, this trailer is dropped. Then all the fans go crazy. Finally, we'll have Final Fantasy VII remade on the current gen console with the great graphics. The story is around this mercenary called Cloud working with a rebellion group to fight against the big corporations, and there's an element of climate change theme in it. But it's a beautiful world, never really kind of rendered to realistic kind of visuals until last month, really. And that trailer was released 5 years ago.
Crazy. It's like Star Wars, when new stuff is coming out. There are 2 very similar questions here. One from Dario DR. He already was in, so let's go on. Carlo, how long does it take to go from a video game idea to the public debut? What's the usual timing that you are sticking for?
There are 2 parts to the question. One is when, if I have a gameplay, a video game idea, can it be made into a video game? So that part, I would say, takes a lot of time, because many games died during the idea phase. That for anyone, one thing that we need to remember is, unlike many other industries, you don't make money from making video games until the game is made and sold. So that you need upfront investment to be able to convince anybody to put their money in and take that financial risk. They need to find the idea is worth investing. So
it's like a movie show.
It's like
basically,
a
like
movie,
a
right?
movie. Yeah.
You need to pitch with the right script. So this could take a month, this could take years. But from that point, if an idea is greenlit to it's finally being made, really depends on the scale of the game. Are we looking at Flappy Bird? Are we looking at Angry Birds? Are we looking at Final Fantasy VII, which can take many years and many hundreds, if not thousands, people of making it. So that really depends. But I would say typically a $60 or £60 or euro a box product will at least take 2-3 years to make. At least the ones that you see on the shelves.
Gosh, 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
But it's a hard job. I mean, your job it's a hard job, Shu, because every day you have to play video game, I guess.
No,
And
I think your job is much harder than me.
But what happens if you play video game? I mean, you just say, "Look, guys, I need to work," and then you start to play video game like Fortnite, like crazy. No, how does it work?
You don't really. I think it's like baking. A lot of the time, effort, and energy is spent on making the things, not eating the things, right? And the process of playing and testing, and is not painless, because you have a vision that you want to achieve, and you will realize how flawed the early products is, and to be able to see the final product when it is still in what we say gray box stage, that you just see gray cubes and polygons, and being able to project what the future is and trying to take careful steps towards that goal, requires a lot of tenacity, requires a lot of effort, and great team effort from that. So yes, there's a lot of playing in it, but that's the same as tasting your ingredients and tasting the work in progress stuff, compared to tasting the final delicious cake that you're baking.
Alessandro has got a question for you. A junior animator. I started working in the industry, he says, about 1 year ago in an indie Italian studio. Any advice for me? Let's help this young generation, Shu.
Yeah. So I'm not an animator, so I can't speak about the trade as an animator. But when we look for talents, I think it's really important to build a portfolio, and ideally a portfolio that's in a game product, rather than just a kind of a separate portfolio, just to show that, one, that you can work with others, and two, that you have the hands-on skills. And when you have a strong portfolio, that you are able to open the doors and to get people's attention.
Got it. All right, I can't stop. Shu, do you ever play the match with Ponima? No, I just want this question because, of course, Shu is playing every day with Ponima, and if you need to take his call, I mean, just do it. No, but I think a lot of people, they don't know who Ponima is. So maybe we could get this chance to explain who Ponima is.
I think Ponima is the head and one of the founders of Tencent, and Tencent is the big corporation that in China, who runs the WeChat platform, and as well as big investors of many successful game companies.
But give me an example. Where did they invest? I don't remember. In a lot
Tencent, as a company, they are big shareholders of Epic Games, and
they also in Epic Games.
They also own Riot Games, the developers of League of Legends.
Got it. All right, Shu. Finally, only after 24 minutes.
Yeah.
We are able to start talking about.
People lost the interest of asking any more questions.
Yeah, that was the longest intro ever. Right. I wanted to go, but there are questions, so I was sad about it. All right, okay. Now let's start from here. We saw the numbers. I mean, there are companies, and Netflix is one of those companies, and obviously video game companies are anti-crisis, I should say. So the world is going in big trouble, but there are sectors that are thriving at the moment. And we saw, for instance, that Netflix doubled the number of subscribers during lockdown. By the way, have you watched this Tiger King?
I watched a little bit. I was shocked by it.
I can't go. I can't pass episode 1. I
Yeah.
can't find it interesting, but
No,
everyone says
I didn't
fantastic.
finish it, but obviously lots of people are watching it, and Netflix has managed to reach out to millions and millions of subscribers, right? And that's why it has such a diverse kind of content offering, so that you will find something that you enjoy.
Crazy,
But
crazy.
like you said, I think video games is doing really well. I think that is the very fortunate side effect from people are not able to go out and find other entertainment kind of forms. And the things that we kind of talked about before going live is, as you can see on the screen,
Yeah,
generally that there is a crisis. Big banks, oil companies, and airlines got hit, which makes a huge part of the financial markets. And on average, that if you look at FTSE, that 20% of the market value is lost. But if you
yeah,
look at game companies, what you're looking at is
yeah.
Nintendo, I
Nintendo.
believe.
Yeah,
So yes, there is an initial shock around March when the full scale of the impact is felt, but very quickly the market realize actually video game industry is more resilient because there's a huge demand of consuming the video game content. People want to find interesting things to do to entertain themselves, and a video game is one of the obvious ways that people can do that. And on Nintendo, there's what's interesting is they recently released their forecast for this year, and they have been quite cautious. Advise investors that they might see some reduction in their numbers for this year. It's a very interesting company because on one hand they have such strong content offering that you are talking about Animal Crossing, you're talking about all the Mario titles, Zelda titles, and so people spending time on Nintendo platforms. But at the same time, let's not forget that Nintendo is also a hardware manufacturer. So they are selling Nintendo Switches, and that makes a huge part of their business. And with hardware manufacturing, like many other products, obviously the supply chain will be impacted. While factories are closed, retailers are closed. Their sales of their hardware will take a hit, and that limit the potential growth that they can get from their software titles as well. So it's sort of a optimistic but also mixed bag for companies like that.
is it a myth, a legend that a lot of I mean Nintendo Switches is sold out and it's difficult to find it, or is a scarcity trick, or is it true? Is it
I
really
think
going very well?
I think there's a lot of kind of talks about that. I don't really know. I think, but I don't want to believe it because if we look at it, Nintendo Switch is a 3-year-old console now, if I remember it correctly. So this is not its first year debut, right? And um, you know, there are lots of kind of switches out there, but I think it's the sudden spike of wanting one during this time that caused the stock problem rather than anything that Nintendo trying to engineer. Of course, they want to sell as many as possible. There might be either cautious or deliberate limiting the stock initially to drive the interest, but I don't think now is the time to do it.
Giordano about Nintendo asks, what would you think Nintendo is going to invest on VR? A lot of other people I saw are very curious about virtual reality. What's your opinion about virtual reality? I tried my first serious virtual reality experience with you in
Right.
my dinner room. So
Yeah.
what was it? I don't know, was scared because it was
Yeah.
high somewhere with the
Yeah.
dragon. I don't remember. But
Yes.
what do you think about VR?
So I think that's a very interesting question. Like I think there is a lot of friction and upfront investment to get a personal VR gaming in the house, because not only that you need to buy consoles, or even if you play on PC, the PC setup, then you need to buy the VR equipment. Then also you need to pay for the content of that. So that's the financial investment. Then there's also the time investment that you need to actually get everything plugged in and put it on. And once you played, you might need to tidy that up, etc. So it's not as immediate as just swipe on your phone, then you are into a game session. So because of that, I think only the very enthusiastic kind of players are pursuing that and willing to invest both in money and in time. So one of the kind of the successful stories is arcade VR, and when you go into big shopping malls in big cities, or go to play the Void, it's almost like a theme park ride. So the novelty is strong, and because you are not really investing in the hardware directly, but just pay for the playtime, so they are able to provide much kind of exciting content at a much lower cost, and people are happy to experience that novelty. So I think it's still, to really lower the barrier, both from the cost point of view as well as the friction to set that up, is the biggest challenge. And going back to Nintendo, as a company that is always aiming at very broad audience, it wants to bring everybody into gaming and provide family-friendly content to everybody. So I don't think, and that's just my personal opinion, I don't think that it will kind of champion something that requires hundreds of dollars investment from anyone. And interestingly, there is a release of the Nintendo Labo VR kit, which is quite interesting. But again, it's the same philosophy, trying to make it accessible for everybody. Maybe they're working on something, or maybe they are not. I don't know. But I tend to believe if they do, that will be something that is affordable for everybody.
I read a lot about events. Events obviously cancelled all over the world, every sector. And some people say, well, replace them with VR and so on. But I mean, imagine that you stay 14 hours with the VR sensor on. I mean, is at the moment is not there. I cannot.
Yeah,
I don't know anyone who stay 14 hours a day with the VR, Oculus thingy on.
I
So
think
it's
there will
just
be
uncomfortable.
people, but that's also why the arcade experience, that you go in and play 5 minutes, and so that takes you to a world, and you fully immersed, is strong. But I think right now, fatigue and how sustainable that is one of the challenges the industry is facing.
Sure, Enrico has got an interesting question. It's about music. He's a film and television soundtrack composer, and he asks if you have any advice on how to pitch my music to video game production companies. How does music works? I would love to produce some music for video games.
So I think this is one of the part, and as we are talking about COVID-19, this is one of the parts which is quite interesting. Is apart from very big players that industry, I would say the very majority of games, they have their music done externally. So as a video game developer, if I need music being composed, recorded, or performed, I probably will go somewhere who does game music as a specialist, so that I don't have to bear the ongoing cost of sustaining that facility. And
Sorry, excuse me. Sure, are these companies or
this could be companies,
solo or freelance?
music companies, and this could be freelancers as composers. So if I were to give any advice there, one trick that you can do is find the games that you like or you want to compose music for, and check the credits in the game, so that you will notice who has made the music for this particular game. And then you might have a short list of companies that has done game music. Then take it from there, start knocking on their doors again, produce convincing portfolios and tracks, demo reels, trying to persuade them to invest in you.
Sure. Let's go back to this COVID situation. How the way of working has changed for you and for the video game industry? Working remotely, organization,
Yeah.
tips, what's going on?
I think for most of the development that we are largely immune from that because as I mentioned briefly before, that games is rarely done in one location. So there's already a lot of kind of connected activity that going on. I'm talking to clients in China, in Montreal, and in the US, in other parts of the world, and we can work that way. So going transiting to working from home, once the initial setup makes sure all the security stuff is in place, it is totally doable. However, it's not 100% because there are areas of the game that you just can't do remotely, that you need to have that face-to-face contact with people, such as music recording. If I need voice over, that I need voice actors coming to the music studios to record their voices. And if I need animation, lots of the animation work is done from motion capture, then I need the actors to travel to the studio to record motion capture. I need to direct the motion capture. So also that if I want the testing done, lots of the testing facility is in kind of in studios for security reasons, that you need a large amount of people putting the hours into testing the games. So there will be impact to those roles that can't be easily performed in an isolated environment. So most of the development is not really affected, but at the same time, for those specialist kind of roles, there will be an impact, and that might cause delay to certain
Delay.
titles coming.
So you think that will happen? What will happen with Netflix, for instance? That yes, it's growing with subscribers at the moment, but then maybe on September, October, they will have no new
Yeah,
series
I wouldn't be
originals coming out.
surprised, if that impacts on many of the titles, and particularly in the film industry, that the shooting must stop, right? And unless that you're shooting something that everyone is standing 2 meters apart, I don't think that
No,
you can have a film there.
got it. Gucci is introducing the esport theme. Gosh, we have so many questions. You have no idea. I really hope that. All right, no, I will stop one question at a time, or my wife will divorce,
Yeah,
which is not good. So, is talking about the esport theme, and 2021 Rocket League and Street Fighter 5 are going to be at the Olympics thanks to an event by Intel. I don't know anything about that, so I don't know about this. But what do you think about the esport future?
yeah,
And
absolutely. I
what
would
do you
say
think?
definitely it will be seen on TV. Maybe not as popular as many other kind of mainstream channels, but I certainly think this will happen at some point. One thing that we've already noticed, when all the sports are stopped, there are stories on the internet that I read that footballers are playing FIFA and trying to stream their matches. Tennis players are playing virtual kind of video game tennis, and broadcast that. So, and people will tune in, or even F1 drivers or racing drivers will play F1 video game and trying to broadcast that. So I think, in terms of entertainment, a lot of people watch elite players play because they can do something themselves cannot. In the same way, I will watch Monty playing table tennis because I can never play table tennis like that. And to be able to experience kind of top
You
tier,
can now. You absolutely can now.
yeah, virtually. So I think video games is exactly the same, right? And certain games require skill and craft to be able to trying to kind of walk in other people's shoes and see those performance being carried out is exciting and entertaining. So I definitely think that in the near future that we will see broadcast of game matches on TV. I'm sure there are programs on that already.
Antani Master from YouTube asks main difference between Western market and Asian market. We were talking about that when we were in Shanghai, I remember.
Yeah.
And what you see, you are in a very interesting situation, an interesting
Yes.
position, because you live in UK, so you can see all the Western kind of development, but you obviously know very well Asia. What's the situation?
I think it's a very kind of big topic. There's a lot of kind of similarities. There are kind of fantasies, Eastern fantasies and Western fantasy. There's Eastern or Japanese RPGs and Western RPGs. I think those genres, you know, have different play styles, um, and people have different levels of tolerance to certain mechanics. For example, free to play is probably much more widely accepted that in Asia, at least that is what a few years back. And but in terms of I think it's mainly the style, the culture, the tradition determine the kind of the difference in those products. But I also don't see there's a huge line there for stopping the Western audience to enjoy products from the Asian market. And Final Fantasy is precisely a good example of that. It's a Japanese RPG and very different from the Western traditional kind of fantasy RPG, but there's such a strong Western following on that culture.
And what about Fortnite, Shu? I mean, how is it possible that Fortnite is still thriving so much? Also, Fortnite has a conversion rate from free to pay that I think is really high. I mean, what's your take on Fortnite?
I think once you hit first of all, such a good quality product, right? And it kind of becomes a self fulfilling prophecy that once you hit that tipping point, then you generate a lot of resources that can be reinvested back into the game. So they're constantly monitoring the feedback of the game and constantly improving the game, pushing out new updates, and increasing their popularities. So as one of the leading players when that genre was first kind of established, it just becomes the go-to place for that particular group of audience, really.
But why people pay to play Fortnite? I mean, if it's free, this is the big question that everyone that are not familiar with the video game industry have. Why and how is it possible that Fortnite makes money if it's free to play and you don't gain any specific skills by buying their V-Bucks?
I think there's just the kind of the emotional investment in it. I think you know everything that they are selling that in the game doesn't really impact the gameplay. So it doesn't really give you a winning advantage. They are not pay to win, but you can pay to customize yourself. You can pay to get new expressions that you can use to express yourselves. And once you spend enough time in a game in a virtual world long enough, those things becomes more valuable to you, right? If you go, before COVID-19, I rarely spend time in my study, and as you can see, it's a very small kind of study. I never pay any attention to it. But
Minimalistic.
yes, since COVID-19, that I spent more time working from home in this space, then I noticed, oh, maybe I should invest something in it because the space becomes more valuable to me. It's the same with lots of free to play games, and that's why the initial retention is so important. Once the player identify that as a go-to place after work or when they have free time and spending more and more time in it, it feels, yeah, it's valuable to me if I dress nicely, if I buy
Yeah.
something to dress the way I want to dress. And I think it's just kind of the constantly building up that emotional investment from the player.
You also project your status to the other players
Yeah.
based on the skin
Yes.
that you buy and what you
Yeah.
use.
There is a certain element of prestige in that, but again, I think you need to value that space first, right? And for you to really feel the value.
Ciro Toracchio is curious about the best approach to pitch a game to a publisher. What would you recommend?
So I think to really see from the publisher's point of view, why do they want to invest in your game? So they want to believe your game can be either a critical success, even if it loses money, but that generates a lot of kind of kudos from the industry. It's possible, but most likely they want to see that grows into a commercial success. So they need to see the potential of that, and they need to see the reason that people will play your game instead of your competitors. So what is your unique selling point of your game ideas? And that's the first one. And two, why that it is you that can make it, why some other people, Monty and myself, can't make this game, and what gives you the strength as a developer, so that you have that kind of entry point threshold, prevent others stealing your idea and make it work. So I think one is you will sell, it is a good game, and two, to prove that you can be the one that makes it. So some gameplay data from early access will definitely help to say, hey, there is a popularity kind of following of my game. It can kind of indicate a very promising future that address the first problem.
I have the feeling that you're like a video game jukebox shoe.
We can do this forever.
The France fan, that's an interesting point, I think. How do you think developers should correctly balance between maintaining a game original intended identity and reacting to the community feedbacks? And I give you my example. For some people of my community, I should do only ping pong videos, right? So every video I should do should be ping pong. Other users say, no, you should only do videos about marketing. Other people say only about hair. I don't know, shampoo. I don't know. So every, sector in your community, they have a different requirement and expectation. So how do you balance that with the general vision of the game that you want to build?
I think as most things, that it really depends, right? I think you can't make everybody happy. People will be very disappointed that we don't talk about shampoo in today's video, and you can't make everybody happy.
We'll talk in a second. We'll talk in a second.
And I think as a developer, you need to understand what your product is, stands for. You can't make Animal Crossing into Final Fantasy. So there is something that differentiates your product, and maintaining that is really, really important. But at the same time, that is not to say to ignore the community feedback. Engage actively to let the community know we've heard you, but we decided not to follow your suggestion because we want to maintain the value of our product. But don't leave them in the cold. So I think actively engaging them and make sure their voice is heard and respected, but it is okay to not do what they ask.
Francesco is bringing up the topic of relationship between movie industry and video game industry. How does it work? I mean, what's the relationship between the two worlds when you develop a video game? Do you talk with the studios? What's your experience? I know that anyway, you can't say anything. So, but I just want to have emotional feedback, let's say.
Yeah. I think if you do a licensed game that takes an original idea from a movie, one thing that we talked about earlier is about the discovery problems, right? And even if you make a fantastic game, it's just not known. But if it is based on a popular movie idea, certainly it's already steps ahead in terms of discoverability. People know about the movie, so people will understand what your game is about. There's a lot of kind of audience education in the marketing process, trying to explain to people what the game is about and why it is unique. But if you have a movie behind it, then people knowing the franchise already know, what the topic of the game is. So you already jumped several hoops and steps ahead. But at the same time, it cuts both ways because the Terminator that you watch might be differently to how I remembered the Terminator, right? And so to live up to people's expectation could be a very challenging task.
But also, sometimes you see movies made by popular video games. I don't remember. I think I saw one recently. I don't remember which video game was. Or maybe is The Witcher inspired by a video game? The Netflix series, possible?
Yes. Yeah. So again, I think it's, if it is another fantasy drama on Netflix, you will attract that particular audience. But if you release The Witcher, there's a large video game following who also are subscribers of Netflix will say, "Oh, actually, what is that?" It's Witcher. I know about Witcher. So a lot of the steps that in the usual marketing process, they don't have to do. There's already the awareness for the discovery.
So, to wrap up our conversations that went from esports to shampoo to any kind of topics related to video game, what do you expect out of this COVID period? What do you think will change, if anything, will change in the video game industry? I mean, and for sure there will not be events for quite some time. Probably
Yeah, I
this
think
is already a big change.
I think in the longer term, I can't really see there will be a big impact because I think that people will still enjoy playing video games, and probably more so at home if we need to stay at home for a longer period. But what I do see, apart from the pipeline problem that we talked about briefly, that there might be delays because you can't get the voice actors in, or there's a restriction on that. The companies are working very hard trying to make it possible to perform those actions that remotely, and I think this will change. But apart from the short term delay to certain video game productions, one big impact I would see, and one thing that we didn't talk about too much is events being cancelled. So E3 is cancelled, GDC is cancelled, Gamescom is cancelled, and not only these are consumer events as a marketing campaign to raise the awareness of their game, but also these are very important business development opportunities, and particularly for small and media developers. And to them, this is once in a year's time, they can go and meet multiple potential publishers or investors in one day or in 3 days, and they save up for that moment. So I would think not having those events will make it more difficult for those groups of people trying to secure a deal, get investment, and make their game. And as we see, the games takes years to make, and the sudden pause of getting many of the games to start now, we will potentially find there will be some lack of content down the line.
Do you think these events will be substituted by virtual events, virtual summits?
They are already happening, right? And they are
Right.
already doing the digital events. And GDC is a conference, so the conference, the lectures are being given online. Gamescom is going digital. Tokyo Games Show probably is going digital as well. But I think what that gives you is be in the same place, and that if I need to speak to you as a publisher, also speak to someone else, that they can all be at the same place, that people are more willing to meet each other. But if you want to arrange a Skype meet just at a random date, it's more difficult to happen.
Tom Bai, which is your favorite game? So we're going personal now. Now there are a
Right.
lot of personal questions. So if you're
Yes.
ready.
My favorite game is called Ikaruga. It's not very well
What's
known.
that?
Monty, I've just sent you the name of the game. I don't know whether that you can Google it and share that on the
All
screen.
right, I'll
So
show
it's
this. Ikaruga.
Ikaruga.
What's
So
that?
it's
I didn't know that. You never told me.
no, no.
Ikaruga on Steam.
It is
Ikaruga.
on Steam. Yes. It's
Right,
a very old game. It's a top-down 2D shooter
for Switch.
I think it is on Switch now. Yes, it's pretty much on all the popular platforms.
Okay, I'll share it now. Oh my
Yes,
gosh, is it appropriate to my audience?
yes,
It's
it's
a
totally
7
appropriate.
plus.
It's a 7+. So unless there's anyone 6 watching, um, so it's a
Is it this
fantastic
one?
game. It's done by a studio called Treasure, but it's so elegant, and it has kind of white and black theme running through it. But not only that impacts on the aesthetics of the game, but also the gameplay, that you have to switch color. White cannot be hit by white, but when you switch to black, it will the color suddenly becomes a threat. So
I didn't
there's
know
a
that.
lot of kind of design philosophies I personally pursue is said in this game. So it's a very old game. I wonder, by listing that how many more sales that we will see for this game happening today.
I, the shares will rocket tonight.
Yes,
Oh my
that is my
god!
personal game,
Got
favorite game.
it. And what about Mixer? We saw Ninja sometimes ago moving from Twitch to Mixer, and it was a big discussion. And then Microsoft trying to push the boundaries. What's your opinion on Mixer at the moment?
Yeah,
How's it going?
I think it's really hard to say, right? And particularly when you already have a big player already established their kind of dominant position, changing people's habits is very difficult. As I think I'm sure that Monty, you all know, if we trying to broadcast this live on a new platform, how likely that you'll get the same number of viewers compared to
Yeah,
the one that you already established.
to
So I
the
think it will be a
3
challenge.
billion views that we are having now. So it's a hard migration. I don't know how is Ninja going.
Yeah.
Honestly, I see
I
some.
don't either. I think another thing, what is interesting happening now is Epic Game Store is trying to challenge Steam and offering lots of incentives for developers to release their game on Epic Game Store, and they're trying
I see.
to really, take advantage of how popular Fortnite is and drive people going to the Epic Game Store. But um, you know, I can't really predict the future. It's certainly not an easy battle, and not only that, you need to really provide a much better service, but also we're talking about changing people's habit here.
Couple of questions more, and then I will let you go. Indie games that also, I think, asked before for any tips for indie video game developers, if you have. Also asks about game influencers. What's the relationship with game influencers to
It, it
promote a game?
it's a quite common practice in trying to get game influencers to promote their game. I think for it to be successful, that as with all the influencers, authenticity and genuine feedback and positive image is really important. And the viewers are a very intelligent audience. They will tell if it is a pure marketing campaign, or they can tell the influencers that they really like and follow genuinely enjoy the product. And I think for it to be effective, one, to build a really strong good product, and two, the influencer will be able to convey the honest positive feelings about the game for it to work.
Final question is about freelancing. Giordano asks if you ever hire freelancer to work for your project. How does it work with all of the NDAs and I mean,
Yep, it's a
how,
very common to hire freelancers, and particularly for work that only require a short period of time. Audio, sound, UI testing, and I don't think that we utilize. Is it Upwork that the question mentioned? I don't think that we utilize that platform very much, and because usually you have in-house recruiters or agencies working for you, and they have a network of candidates. So
I see.
if you want to be discovered and search, industry websites and search for job listings and work with a recruitment agency is probably going to help and increase your chance of being discovered.
Fabio and others want to know about GTA 6, if you know anything about GTA 6. But in general, I was curious about if there is any video game that you're really looking for in the next 12 months, something that you really are
Yeah.
expecting, or the industry think, wow, now it's coming out this new video game and should be.
So for the GTA 6 question, I think the only thing that I know for sure is it is after GTA 5.
All right.
Apart from that, I don't know anything about GTA 6. But I think one game I'm really enjoying right now is Animal Crossing, which also showed phenomenal numbers recently. And I think personally, I feel that is largely down to the COVID-19 effect as well. And one game is coming up next is The Last of Us 2. I think that's coming next month, and that is also a highly anticipated title, a big release for summer really. And I do think that we have a trailer that we can play, but
Really? Last of Us. I have no idea what it is. Last of Us.
it is
It's like action or zombies or.
it's a character action game, but it is 18 plus rated. So I don't know whether you need to play any warnings with the live stream that
Right.
it contains.
Let me check. I'll give it a first check, by myself,
Right.
and tell you if it's appropriate.
Yes.
So Last of Us. All right.
The Last of Us 2. So that is the big release by Naughty Dog, and that is coming next month, I believe.
Got it. All right. I'll skip it because I say, oh my gosh, that is really like proper. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So there's no, I will not show it.
So we can't show, and but I think that people who are following must have seen the trailer.
Got it. They know what it is. And by the way, I hope tonight to watch. One scene was exactly like Ozark, the series that I'm watching on Netflix.
Yeah.
I love it. And I hope tonight to watch something. It's exactly the same killing, exactly the same.
Right.
Interesting. Very good. Shoot. Thank you so much for the chat. It was very, very interesting. And get ready for our ping pong mega video game that will
we're
develop.
Going to live stream that. Yep.
In 10 years, virtual reality, everything, and everyone playing against everyone. That would be
absolutely looking forward to that.
Fantastic. Shoot. Thank you so much.
Thank you.